Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're embarking on a real philosophical detective story. We're diving deep into the Shurangama Sutra, specifically Volume 4, to unravel honestly one of the greatest existential mysteries of all time, the origin of our chaotic, turbulent reality. I mean, have you ever wondered how an incredibly messy, friction-filled universe could possibly arise from a baseline reality that is supposedly pure, perfect, and completely still? Well, today we are going to solve that exact cosmic paradox. Together, we're going to map out the precise sequence of how a perfect mind accidentally builds a flawed universe, and, much more importantly, how we can dismantle it.
Here's our roadmap for today's journey. First up, why a pure source spawns phenomena. Second, awakened nature and deluded thought. Third, how delusion actually drives the world. Fourth, rootless delusion, also known as skyflowers. And finally, how stopping the mad mind is itself Bodhi. Let's get right into it.
Starting off with Section 1, Why Pure Source Spawns Phenomena.
We have to begin with a really massive contrast. The text introduces this highly advanced student named Purna, and he points out a glaring paradox. He's essentially saying, look, if the ultimate baseline of reality, our fundamental nature, is perfectly clean and inherently awake, where in the world did all this dirt come from? It's a great question, right? How do you get massive, heavy things like mountains, rivers, and the earth out of something completely formless and pure?
The contradiction here is pretty wild. On one hand, we have the pure fundamental nature. It's formless, it's still, it's inherently awake. But then, look at our daily phenomenal experience. It is bound by forms, it's totally chaotic, constantly shifting around, and just full of friction. So, how do we bridge this gigantic gap between pure stillness and total chaos?
Which brings us to Section 2, Awakened Nature and Deluded Thought. Okay, this is where the Buddha pinpoints the exact microsecond the cosmic glitch occurs. It's a concept called deluded thought. Now, imagine having perfect 20/20 vision, right? But then you strain your eyes trying to somehow see your own seeing. What happens? Your vision blurs. It's the same thing here. The fundamental nature is already perfectly aware. But the moment you add this entirely unnecessary need to perceive, basically a forced effort to clarify what is already perfectly clear, you create a boundary. You instantly fabricate a false observer on one side and a false object being observed on the other. Bam. That right there is the birth of duality.
Let's actually walk through how this single metaphysical mistake cascades into our physical universe. Once you have this artificial observer looking at an artificial object, you've introduced difference. And wherever there is difference, there's friction. Think of rubbing your hands together really fast. That friction generates heat, right? Metaphysically, the text explains that the constant agitation of this subject-object split literally generates the physical elements. The movement creates the wind element. The friction of trying to solidify things creates fire. Fire steaming creates water, and their interaction creates solid earth. So our entire dense, heavy, physical universe, it's essentially the exhaust fumes of a psychological glitch.
Moving right along to Section 3, How Delusion Drives the World.
Now, you might be wondering, if this whole universe is just a glitch, why doesn't it just snap back to purity? Well, that's because of a self-sustaining karmic engine. The delusion itself doesn't actually have a root, but our intense reactions to it keep the gears turning nonstop. First, you have lust and love, which bind beings together emotionally, creating an endless cycle of birth and rebirth. Second, there's killing and greed, beings devouring the weak just to survive, which creates a brutal ongoing cycle of retaliation. And third, stealing and debt, which locks beings into paying back cosmic debts over hundreds of thousands of eons. These three actions are literally the fuel for the fire.
It's actually incredibly profound when you think about it. The initial delusion has absolutely no actual substance. It's totally empty. But our relentless reactions, our attachments, our angers, our daily anxieties give it incredible weight. We are literally building the prison walls from the inside out. The world continues to spin not because the phenomenal world is fundamentally real, but because our own karmic actions are just constantly pumping gas into the engine.
All right, let's look at Section 4, Rootless Delusion, or Skyflowers.
Okay, here is the liberating twist. Despite the crushing weight of that karmic engine we just talked about, this entire chaotic system has a fatal structural flaw. The delusion is rootless. It has absolutely no physical foundation. And why is this the best news possible? Because if delusion actually had a solid root baked into the fabric of the universe, we would have to painstakingly physically destroy it to ever be free. But because it's rootless, it's just a shadow. You don't have to fight it, you literally just have to wake up from it.
The Buddha illustrates this perfectly. Imagine a guy walking around his own familiar village, and suddenly he just gets turned around and confuses south for north. Where did that confusion come from? It didn't grow out of his inherent sense of direction, and it certainly didn't materialize out of thin air as a physical object. It's just a temporary overlay on his mind. The moment someone points out true north, the confusion doesn't pack its bags and travel to another town, right? It simply vanishes, because it never really existed in the first place.
Or think about it like this. Imagine a person with an eye infection who looks up and sees spots, or what they call fake flowers, floating in the empty sky. When the eye heals, those flowers vanish. Now, would a wise person stand there staring up at the sky, anxiously worrying about when that empty space is going to grow those flowers back? Of course not. Once the false subject-object split ends, the phenomenal illusion just evaporates. It wasn't real to begin with.
And that brings us to our final section, Part 5, Stopping the Mad Mind is Bodhi.
So, if the delusion is rootless, how exactly do we break free? The Buddha answers this with the slightly humorous yet honestly deeply tragic story of Yajnadatta. One morning, Yajnadatta looked into a mirror and was admiring his head. But then a crazy thought occurred to him. Wait, I can see the head in the mirror, but I can't see the head on my own shoulders. I must be a monster. Terrified, he ran away screaming. It's totally absurd, but it perfectly highlights the absolute madness of our own human condition. We are frantically searching outside ourselves for a perfection we have literally never lost.
The sutra reinforces this with another beautiful analogy. Think of a person wandering in total poverty, begging for food, completely unaware that a priceless, wish-fulfilling jewel is secretly sewn right inside their own jacket. They endure endless suffering, fighting for tiny scraps, while possessing ultimate wealth the entire time. Just like Yajnadatta's head, and just like this beggar's hidden jewel, our perfect, awakened, pure baseline nature has been with us this entire time, right here beneath all the friction and the chaos.
Which leads us to the ultimate realization of this entire explainer. The mad mind stopping is itself enlightenment. You don't have to build enlightenment. You don't have to manufacture purity or wage some epic war to destroy the world. You simply stop. Stop that artificial need to perceive. Stop feeding the karmic engine of greed and attachment. When the exhausted, constantly running mind simply halts, the original perfect clarity is right there waiting for you. As we wrap up today, I really want to leave you with a profound question to reflect on. If your ultimate nature is already perfectly pure right this very second, and if simply stopping the mad-seeking mind is itself the highest enlightenment, then what exactly are you still running around searching for? Think about that for a while. Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating metaphysical mystery with me.